完了，德国籍推到3个，推到4个，这边的又是一个2打3的画面，triple kill。电视中就要魅力开个显示，完了，我们的 Rush 看起来被打得好，但是自己被这个视野给弹回来，又是 Alex 的一个壁咚，准备要在这一波将 CFO 人全员冲掉。差了一个位置，又是第3个，两个是拿了一个搭手，开始持续的追击，现在的话调整上是 triple， 这一波手上换了一个治愈，多你一个治愈之后这边点输了。再来一个红丸的一个推，拿着不帮忙的效果把小林给推了回去。
And welcome back, everybody, to the PCS Summer Split Playoffs for 2022. We are one game done and dusted in this best-of-5 rematch of the spring finals between PSG and CFO. But before we get into our discussion for Game 2, I want to once again extend a wonderful shout-out to our sponsors for both C2BC Bank and China Airlines for being with us and making this whole thing possible. Now, C2BC, Nightstar, they're not just Taiwan's top financial institution. They're also sponsors of a team that are currently 1-0 up. The all-time head-to-head is now tied 7-7. Nightstar, Flying Oyster certainly flying high, and we will not be changing anything in the side selection. So what are PSG going to do coming into Game 2?
I think it certainly has to be a change in priority on this Azir pick. Mission clearly showing he's really good on the champion, and even then, you also have to just look at the impact of Gory in that particular game. Yes, he got 2 picks onto Mission. Unfortunately, though, again, the damage on Atalia a little bit lower. Unless if you're one of those elite LPL mid laners, it's hard to find those plays in the late game when you are behind. So just give him the Azir, give him the Silas, put him on one of those 2 picks very early on, and that might change how PSG are able to find these come from behind fights because he has that playmaker.
Yeah, I think that Talia was just not quite the same level of impact. He wasn't really able to do the same types of things because he does love himself some damage dealers, and CFO know this. They are going to ban away some of the comfort picks. So far, the only change is Kallista's now banned by PSG.
PSG banning away the Kallista, which tells me they aren't very well versed on the Draven and that they want to put Azir priority utmost on this first pick. And they're actually going to ban away the Draven as well.
Wow.
If you look at the Draven matchups, Draven hard stomps both Zeri and Sivir. So now CFO are put in a spot where most likely they'll just go, okay, I thought they would go ahead and handshake the Sivir Zeri here and go ahead and ban away the Azir, but Azir left on the table, Zeri left on the table, Yuumi left on the table. Those are the clear things here. As PSG,
it's neither.
Yeah, they take none of the. Yeah, all right,
okay.
It has to be Azir.
All right, let
here.
me. Yeah, I think they're going to let the handshake Zeri go over. The Aphelios has been the most played by far for Shun, and I think they may have identified that that is a bigger threat. That being said, the Azir being open means Mission gets having the crack at it, and I am getting a little bit worried for PSG's mid lane, because what do we go to from here? I mean, so far it's been some Corki games. There was a Yone, a Galio. None of them have found wins.
It could be something like a Yone. Does do reasonably well into the Zir. A Galio might be more playmaking potential. Did look pretty good on it. Unfortunately, you know, it's just another one of those cases where he just runs out of damage at a certain point. They go back towards the Talia, and I don't hate Talia as a pick. It's just, if you're not ahead and you're playing from behind, that's not one of those tools that Gory can just bring a win out of the depths for you. And CFO, it looks like they want to go back towards this Sejuani, and this could be Sejuani's support. We know Koala as a player has an exceptionally deep champion pool, so I like this possibly triple flex option.
Yeah, it gives CFO a lot of choices. They've clearly stepped it up in the draft phase. For PSG, I do like the changeup to put Kaiwing on the Nautilus. It was a very highly contested champion through the split. I think he's at his best when he's able to set up engages. You can try to get those hooks, the dredge lines landing onto Mission, maybe onto Shun as well. If you can delete a priority target, that changes those fights a lot quicker. Into ban phase 2, we have Ornn off the board yet again. For Hanabi, I almost kind of want to see him back on tank duty. You know, it's a triple flex for that Sejuani. You know what else it is, Nightstar? It's also a takeaway, as it's one of his most played champions this split.
Yeah, definitely the game plan coming in from CFO. Just try and pinch Hanabi's weak side top lane pool, and maybe they even double down, right? On this pick, they go ahead, lock in the Renekton, force Hanabi in a situation where if he wants to he has something like the GP available to him, maybe he opts towards that, but it
When
again
come in?
would allow CFO a couple of options for this last pick. As they go ahead, ban away the Braum, maybe hoping that Koala does lock in the Yuumi, because then you throw down a bunch of attention bot lane, and if you kill the Zarya once, well, you get 2 for 1, right? Because you get the Yuumi as well.
Leona ban, so PSG now trying to pinch on Koala, but if this is a support Sejuani, it's a big old debate. So we'll have to see what the answer is. CFO are going to reveal something here, and with the Renekton left up on the board, they might just opt into it blind for rest. He's certainly shown himself to be no slouch on these aggressive champions.
Yeah, and if PSG get a little bit too tunneled in on to the Trundle pick, that might be something they opt for again. But again, you even though you do have the Nautilus, you are lacking on just go tools, right? It's going to be fishing for picks rather than just saying, we are going to kill this man, right? And this
that would change things a bit. The
Vi coming out here helps in that regard. It's basically the Nautilus of the jungle, right? You have a point-and-click ultimate. You cannot dodge away, and I think, in my opinion, these responses from PSG are because the Zarya's on the table. So 2 point-and-click CCs, and they get the Gnar for themselves to boot. This is, of course, a very old-school matchup for Renekton Gnar, and Hanabi should be well-versed in that regard.
He will be, and despite the nerfs, Hanabi probably historically the best Gnar player in the league, as CFO playing around with some enchanters on the bottom side. I'd love to see it any which way. Koala has played just an absolute grab bag of supports this split, but Renata has been his most. And as they sit on that hover, it's going to get locked in at the end of the day. This is shaping up to be a beastly team fight. A little bit more focused on the early, but late game, Zarya, Azir coming online. I kind of think they've got a smoothed out scaling curve here.
Yeah, and when you look at the comparison between a Yuumi or Renata, Renata offers you a little bit more during the lane phase, and it allows you to really hard counter the dive focus that looks to be coming out from the side of PSG, whereas you go for the Yuumi, weaker lane phase, and also you want to be a little bit more proactive when using the Yuumi ultimate, since it does take a little bit before the lockdown does come through. However, for the side of PSG, they're just going to be hard diving into the backline, so the Renata makes a lot more sense in that regard. So once again, CFO saving counter pick for Koala, and he does come up clutch. So yet another draft where I feel like CFO has a small edge coming out.
Yeah, I think this time around the difference is that there are a lot more gotcha tools on the PSG side. If they can string them together early on in the game, they can find these dives, they can set up advantages. They still are lacking a little bit in the damage out of Gory, but I like the Cephalios pick on Unified. It's a much more comfortable champion for him, despite the fact that he hasn't been up to his normal form this split. It still gives you a fair amount of late game insurance. There's comfort in the top lane. That matchup is something that Hanabi knows inside and out. The question marks for me are going to be the two Korean players, really. Buri and Gory, I feel like we need to see more from them here, because Gory has been our pretty much our best mid laner all split, but he's not been pinched all that hard until today.
Yeah, getting a little bit targeted in the pick ban phase, and also just the fact that he gets his Azir denied away once again. Goes back towards the Talia, and this time around, I like the fact that they combine it with the Vi, a little bit more kill pressure in this mid lane, or mid jungle duo. So for PSG, I think the approach is going to be throw a lot of attention into this mid lane. Allow then, once Gory hits level 6, to start traversing the map and really hit up these side lanes, naming that bot lane, and try and set up for a bot 4v2 or even a 4v3 dive situation.
We got to remember what these teams are fighting for, right? Because as we've talked a lot about the kind of new rivalry that's taken form, it's a head-to-head overall from the start of the year till now at 7-7, dead even, including that first game. Both of these teams want to go to Worlds. And whoever wins the series is just one more series win away from guaranteed.
Yes.
Our top two teams both end up the World Championship in the PCS. One will be in the main event. One has to go through play-ins, depending on who wins the grand finals. But PSG have been our representatives for a long time. They are the 3-time champions, back-to-back-to-back. And they even have another one from 2020 spring, the first split of the PCS. But that summer, the one blemish on their record, well, it was Machi Esports with the side of Mission Gemini and Koala that did it. And you bet they would love to be back at that big event, hoist the trophy again for the first time in a few years.
Yeah, Rest playing well with the vision. But Hanabi on the Gnar, of course, being that ranged champion, should have a pretty reasonable time in this lane. And it's, when it comes to just straight up lane phase, all eyes are on Koala and should in this bottom lane. Are they able to hold their own against Unified and Kai Wing this time around? Because this time around, it's the affiliate Nautilus that should have the lane advantage. It's going to boil down to Koala being able to disengage well and find good short trades to keep this lane in a good spot. But when it comes to lane influence, with Bury on this Vi pick, should be a little bit more influential and have a little bit more playmaking than the Sejuani. It's just a matter of where does he turn his attention to, and I feel like it should be mid.
Yeah, he was shadowing mid a fair bit previously. You know, we talked about the difference between these two junglers. Gemini tends to rock a very, very low jungle proximity. He's more of a power farmer. The Sejuani works wonders for him because you're not really going to be involved till 6 in a lot of cases. Bury, it's the same, but that Vi does have some options. And speaking of, he's in the mid lane right now, waiting for Mission to overstep at Mission.
Great pathing.
Does play to strong side, as there's a start down on bot. Kaiwing does get hand shook as he dredge lines in, and the damage trade looks like it goes pretty close to even here. A little bit in favor of PSG, I think.
Yeah, a little bit more towards PSG because they are going to have just a slight bit more sustain, but this could be a
for a dive.
very
There's
early
no Narbar.
dive.
There is no Narbar here, and Rest is feeling himself. Remember, patch 12.14, this Gnar suffered some serious hits. It's an old Hanabi favorite. One of the reasons
Gemini has
we
to
thought
start
he
it.
might struggle. His champion pool.
Oh, the wave
definitely
is
drained,
cut
but
off.
the wave gets cut there.
They
Gemini
can't do
does
it.
take a tower shot. Hanabi. Oh
They
boy.
shouldn't be able to do this. This dive is taking way too much time to...
I don't think it's happening
Yeah.
at all.
A really smart play coming in from Hanabi, being able to cut off the wave before it actually hit that tower. And Gemini, I mean, he does the best thing he can do in that moment, is just sit in the bush, recall, and apply invisible pressure onto Hanabi. Bury now up in this top side, showing himself on the board, so things kind of go back to neutral.
That actually helps
Gory.
PSG a lot. Like Gemini, Gemini is just a little bit faster on the draw in the farm game. I think that buys a little bit of breathing room, and Bury able to match means, unlike last game, he should probably have ult about the same time. Kyling on a roam gets some warding down of his own bottom side, so all things considered, the PSG early game plan is going well. Hanabi not even losing out in the farm game to Rest. Not by that much, as the wave will crash.
Kaiwing could look for a flash play here.
Oh, into the hook, and actually, Mission isn't able to get in the clear in time, and it looks so easy for Gory to finish that off with a threaded volley for first blood.
And there was a bit of a misplay coming in from Mission with the hook coming out. He should have just gone ahead and flashed for it. Gemini going for a little bit of harass, gets flicked back. He's in trouble.
Shove. Furry was there, and he does have the Vault Breaker. Now the damage is on, but Furry tanks a few tower shots. They can't finish it. No mana for Gory. So unfortunately, they don't get a 2-for-1 special, but already a much better early game out of the PSG Talon side.
And we were talking about, hey, it has to be a play into this mid lane, open things up, open the map, and give Gory opportunities to start making plays with this global pressure offered by the Talia. And so far, step one has been accomplished. They found a gang into the mid lane. Mission, though, still has his flash, and you better believe if Kaiwing does show up again in this mid lane, Mission will use that flash instead of trying to shuffle his way out.
Yeah, I'll have to. That's a respect play at that moment. Now, Burry and Kaiwing going to duo it up and setting up Death Brush. I think his game senses were tingling, or he saw him just off the edge. And I really like Kaiwing on a tank champion. Like, I loved him in previous splits on Enchanters, but pathing-wise, he feels so much more comfortable. He's able to throw his weight around a little more. There's a reason Nautilus is such a heavily contested pick in our region.
Yeah,
it does buy some time for Shun to move forward.
It opens things up too, right? Because then instead of just trying to track Burry and his jungle pathing, you need to be weary of the second ganker, which is going to be Kaiwing on the Nautilus pick. So it helps alleviate things for Burry as well, make his job a little bit easier when he starts making his moves around the map. And it is a nice first blood, but at the same time, CFO still not really phased by that first blood gold.
No, I think if anything, you do have to worry if Mission starts getting camped. He does have a known tendency to get a little tilted. But yeah, right now, they don't seem to be in too much trouble. The handshake does go through, and I think the thing that's allowed Kaiwing to get his roam on and get that ward coverage up, I think they probably saw Gemini, unless he was able to sneak around the ward vision, is that there just isn't as much pressure for this lane. Like, compared to a Draven Ashe, Zeri and Renata Glask is, yeah, it's not all that bad. Also, you're not playing on a timer, right? Because Unified has Aphelios. There's a reason they put so much prio on this champion. Sure, it's a little behind in CS, but I think Unified's right in the middle of his comfort zone.
Well, it's still going to have a bit of a range issue as the game progresses, but you're not going to be lacking the damage, which was a big issue in the previous game on the Blizzard. Even though he was doing all right, but more attention in the mid lane. It's 2v2.
Both junglers. Burry spotted, though. Mission knows this. There is knowledge. They're going to try and get the bait play on. If he doesn't dash the wall, Gemini is still in the dark. Gory stepping forward here. Playing with fire and into the immediate ice bola. They find the damage. The blue smite's on, looking for the extra. The shove back. However, here comes the turn into the Emperor's Divide. Burry caught on the opposite side of the map, forced to flash away from that one, and nobody goes down. But a whole lot of summoners expended on the PSG side.
Oh man, Gemini with the spidey senses, knowing that surely with the level 6 Vi play, you want to make a play into that mid lane, right? And it was just perhaps a little bit too telegraphed, right? And as a result, the match is there, and it's the side of CFO that come out with the summoners today.
Oh yeah. Right now, despite the fact that that play did end up fizzling, PSG have been able to play it pretty well across the rest of the map. Gemini going to start on Herald, and Burry is here to contest. Mission is here to join. We might get our first proper skirmish of the game if this commitment happens. Here comes the Weaver's Wall. Gory finds Mission. This time, your respect flashes that. He still gets shoved onto the unraveled earth. However, now, he's going to have to hope he can slide and glide his way to safety. There he goes, but the Herald has been stopped. Rest tries to keep it aggroed, but it gets tired, gives up the chase.
With Kaiwing making his way over, it does mean PSG might have the ability to just commit to it, but they actually end up pulling off. So this is feels like one of those classic PSG setups where if it's not a 90-10, we're not just gonna we won't take that play during the early game. It's we want to be super sure, and that might just come from the fact that, again, the communication might not be fully fleshed out, but they will eventually turn their attention towards this Rift Herald
and walk away with it. So
Okay.
extended, a little slow, a little cautious, but they do win the race, slow and steady. I think CFO a little bit behind in the gold game here, but they do have some late game power for themselves. We are definitely in for a less bloody match thus far, as we take a look at how the gold has shifted over time, now into PSG's favor. Despite some play attempts made mid, not yielding any further results for the Talia. I do got to hand it to PSG there. They're not looking too bad. 10 CS down in the top lane for Hanabi, but he has not been pushed out too far. He hasn't been bullied too much, and he hasn't even had any help from Bury this time. And that Gnar, we talked about a win condition for CFO being, hey, maybe they can shove a lane, maybe they can win one up in the top because Hanabi is having a hard time. Well, he's been able to keep this Renekton at arm's length. As Bury is hoping to do the same, but he does get bodied by the rest of CFO, and Shun was right in the middle of that with the lightning crash, doesn't get the kill, goes to Gemini, and that opens up, well, just about whatever the heck CFO want. I think this will probably be a late first rate.
It's going to be a late first rate, and because of the fact that it is Cloud, so not as much battle stats, but the side of PSG, they are getting a little bit feisty here.
It's not 90-10, Nightstar. I think they look
yeah.
at it wistfully, back away from this one. The gold game just about even. CFO will pick that up. It will be an Infernal next time, and that is a Drake worth fighting for.
Yeah, that's for sure. The only issue is it does feel like CFO have gotten what they wanted, right? And that's scaling time for Mission and Shun on these scaling carries who will outrange the side of PSG. And with this Renata as well, you know, even if they try and overforce a dive with the Gnar, the Vi, and the Nautilus, you have ways to easily turn things around. So I think CFO are in a bit more of a comfort spot, and if they get dove under this tier 1 tower, the response was there from Gemini once again. So far in the first 2 games, it does feel like Gemini has a good read on the situation and sort of out-jungled Bury to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big experience gap, right? I mean, Gemini has been a mainstay of PCS for a long time. Again, he was part of that Machi core back in 2020, and he's been playing, I think, going back to like 2017 even. Whereas Bury, this is his first Premier League. I mean, he was coming from Challengers Korea previously, and he's in a region where he's had to learn a new language himself, even from scratch, compared to Gory, who's had a little bit more time on an LPL roster and knows Mandarin. But that is a difference, and I think that's something that CFO have identified as a point of strength they can use. Gemini has also been really, really good at just being where he's needed for counterplays. Yeah, reading the map, but also being able to react. And I love the Sejuani flex because it's given CFO so many tools to work with in draft and beyond.
Yeah.
Skywing. It's caught. He's fine.
He's fine.
Again, he's a Nautilus. He's okay. Yeah, you know, that's Renata. She dead.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Just a nice stat, though. Of course, with Nautilus, it is PCS Nautilus, right? So
That's true.
So far in playoffs, we've had 10 games in Nautilus. So far, it's had a 90% win rate. So
It's a good champion. It is. I will hear no slander against Nautilus. Other regions don't know how to play it. That doesn't mean it's. Yeah. It's a good champion.
So it does. It is, you know, that ray of hope when it comes to PSG fans who, you know, this game so far pretty slow. So both teams comfortable. I think the scaling
I
champion
think it might speed up soon.
Oh yeah.
Even with Gemini, it's still a 3v4. That tower's going down. Weaver's wall to cut them off.
Good
It will get interrupted by Gemini, but on the opposite side, you can see Shun flashing over the wall into the lightning crash over. Koala's going to be left for dead. And, oh, they cut their losses down at 1, but clearly CFO were not ready for that collapse.
I'm surprised they didn't go for a teleport play with Mission. Him having the teleport available and knowing how telegraphed that dive was, definitely could have gone for it. They try and outplay it in a undermanned situation. Doesn't turn out very well. And PSG, they find the play that they were looking for, right? We talked about, hey, we open up Gory, and now Gory can roam and attack this bottom lane. That's exactly what happens. And for the side of PSG, they also get that first tower. So it's a 1,500 gold lead. Not the largest lead, but you'll take what you can get.
Well, and up against the side of CFO, who are legendarily solid in the laning phase, right? Having a lead at 16 minutes feels monumental, and you can see Gory has started to emerge as a bigger damage-dealing threat, going for a little bit of a slow roll in the build, but as the Seraph's already finished, or excuse me, not the Seraphs, what am I on about? Compared to the Ludens from Mission, so he gets himself his mythic first. There we go, there's the Seraphs. I was a few tier stacks away. Starting to see mythics come in through the board. Trinity Force for Hanabi, who has been able to hold his own against this Renekton, which means the table should turn a little bit in the later stages of the game. CFO clustering up in the mid and actually realizing it's a dangerous place to be, so they do respect the distance, and now both teams kind of looking at each other from across the river.
Hanabi with pretty sizable Gnar bar, so if a fight were to break out, he's in a position to respond and turn the fight very easily. Shun is going to have to play a little bit careful. Of course, he has his mythic completed, but the difference in mythic spikes is definitely notable, because Unify will be able to make some plays with his Gale Force. Also has a little bit of safety, whereas Shun, the Zeri again doesn't really come online until you hit 3 items. Even that 2 items can be a little bit tough.
Oh, they find Hanabi though, and his Gnar bar is not quite up yet. As they look for him, he actually is able to flash and hop away. For the second wind effort, here comes that hostile takeover, dodged and flashed by everybody, but PSG do lose a couple of crucial summoners for this dragon fight. Yep. Think they might have to cede the ground. Hanabi does not have TP just yet, so they back off, realizing maybe they can get some chip tower mid instead. Well, CFO Dragon Stack, it's online a little later this game, but it is online.
Yeah, and this time around it's going to be a Mountain Soul, so this is going to be a very relevant soul. So the next 2 fights should come around this dragon. Mountain, also very, very good for Zeri. Gotta be caught out, but I mean, it's a 1v1 against jungler, so he's perfectly comfortable there. We'll have to battle for the Krugs.
The battle for Krugs. It's the truest battle.
Absolutely. And Gory, you know, this time around, he gets to play forward with this Taliyah pick, whereas last game, he wasn't really put in a position to even have a chance to succeed. So playing Taliyah from ahead, definitely a much different game than playing Taliyah from behind.
It was a better draft from PSG. I think they still gave over some power picks, but they didn't face as much early pressure from CFO due to the way the compositions panned out. I like this Vi, even though we haven't seen the cease and desist, I think, come out really once. The early gank pressure was still there, and Bury was able to keep pace with Gemini this time around, unlike what he did on the Trundle, which was kind of just fall behind. So Bury has definitely stepped it up in this series. I also think that the difference in lane pressure down bottom has kind of made all of the difference and allowed Kaiwing to roam. That combined with Hanabi just playing, you know, rather than taking the Renekton to try and survive early against an aggressive top like Rest, just giving it away, taking the Gnar matchup, even despite the nerfs, he's had a big impact, and now the Gnar ultimate is still a threat for those team fights that PSG are so good at.
And it's just another one of those tools that has a lot of team fight pressure, right? So another way to find a lot of CC to create space for then Unify to try and carry these fights. Also rocking the cleanse, so even if he does get hit by the hostile takeover, has a way to cleanse out of it. And
it's a very different game than game 1. I think we approached 20 minutes with like something like 8 or 9 kills at least. Now we have 20 minutes with 3 total, almost as many dragons, and even that's slow, but that's just nature of how things have shifted.
And that's also the difference between PSG when they're ahead, right? They slowed the game down really, really hard. They're not a team that pushed the pace.
Unified dodges. Good Gale Force pop. Just out of Gemini's range. You can see them looking. They're still fishing Nightstar, but they haven't been able to find it. Without that crucial ultimate now,
Wall
PSG gonna hit the go button. They find Gemini isolate, although he does get over the wall, shoved right back into it. The hostile takeover comes out to buy a tiny bit of time, but PSG, they know they've got the kill onto Gemini. And with Nari the wall, they've caught the Renekton as well into the handshake play. He flashes and slices and dices, so he'll stay alive, but gonna be burning that Dominus. No smite. If this was CFO on the other side, I'd say it's Baron time. PSG, they're a little less hasty than that as they go in for the big play. They find Mission, he pushes them back, but he still takes the damage. Unified with the finisher after that Moonlight Vigil. And PSG just know the limits of what they can get away with.
Oh, Shun, he's searching, trying to find any sort of target he could chase down with the extra movement speed, but unfortunately unable to find anyone there. That's also the reality of the situation. Only 1.5 item on Zeri. Even if these fights do get a little bit chaotic and a little bit messy, Zeri doesn't quite have the damage to fully capitalize on the situation quite yet. As we get to see, it starts off with the Ice Bulla, does come short. Really nice play from Unified to dodge out. But not too shabby of a trade, right? You're okay with trading those cooldowns, but this is where, you know, PSG do showcase some of the team fight power they have, right? Wall comes in, they're able to play a bit of an isolated situation there. They also get the follow-up CT onto Rest to force out his flash. And this is yet another overextension coming in from Mission. He still hasn't built a stopwatch, which for most part, a lot of these mid laners are going to build stopwatch early on for these team fights. Mission isn't one of those players. He just builds more and more damage, just saying, I'm good enough that you're not going to punish me, but I think that was a mistake.
Yeah, Brains versus Braun, and I think PSG's Brains winning out right now. Have themselves about a 2,500 gold advantage in their favor, and kills on Gory, a kill on Unified as well. He picked that one up, and now Lord Dominic sends his regards. So with the Mountain Dragon live on the Rift, PSG at the inside track, they can cut the legs off this Drake stack. But CFO, it's not as easy of a Baron take, but they could still threaten it, and you have to think it's a team that is just crazy enough to commit to it. If they get the catch, it's going to be Mission once again caught by PSG. Cease and desist as he shoves him in, but that only helps PSG as a big multi-man Gnar against the wall.
Shun's still
Means they
alive,
can open up here, but Shun trying to do the work as they try to fire down Hanabi. They will get the kill on the second one after Rest gets a bit of a bail up, but now the turnabout happens again as they lose the Croc.
Wall comes through.
You have the Weaver's Wall coming through. They've isolated Shun, taken him out, and Koal the double into the triple, and Gory is on the board. Huge this game. That's going to be the Baron play.
And it's such a big punish onto Mission once more. Doesn't build the stopwatch, a key cooldown that they need to stay alive in the vent. They try and go for a pick. And the tools, the safety tools he has just aren't quite enough. Bury, though, exceptionally low. He still wants to stick around to use the smite, and it's really a smite fight, and he does fall short. Mission there to just say hello to his fallen jungler.
Yeah, you know, I feel like you have to try that, Gemini. Like, at this point, you know the other jungler's low. It's a 50-50. Like, you pull off the play and you're a hero. Sometimes you're a zero. But you know what? It's worth it. It's worth the try.
It's definitely worth the try because it's still, again, a very young jungler. So you want to test the nerve as we see, again, he doesn't have the flash up and he plays this far forward, doesn't respect the catch potential on side of PSG, get punished there, and this looked like it could have been a Zeri moment. And if this was 3-item Shun, it definitely would have been a Zeri moment. But it's not, because it's not 3-item Shun. So a big difference with power spikes has allowed PSG to now play their macro game and slowly just outmaneuver CFO.
taking control. And look at the item difference in the mid. I mean, Mission had a great time last time around. Still had some positional errors, but wasn't punished nearly as hard. This game, it's a huge difference. Gory is fully online in a carry role because the Talia, just finding the frontline picks, has been nailing these seismic shoves to just set up the play. And Mission, yeah, no stopwatch here. It's going to be the Shadow Flame.
He could have stopwatch. He could have had stopwatch because, you know, it's about 450 for the Amp Tone, and you can sell your Doran's Ring. But now the wall comes through.
Yeah, I think the slow tilts come in here. Mission is having a hard time with the Weaver's Wall, cutting them off from that tower. PSG polish off another one on the Baron push. And you see the difference in how these two teams win games, Nightstar. We saw in game one how CFO prefers to play, and now this is PSG, a page ripped straight out of their playbook.
And PSG with the 7K gold lead, and with no Dragon Soul on the table, this is them just taking the game at their pace. Eventually,
you got scaling the match.
Eventually, they are going to have to pull the trigger, though, right? Because Shun, once he gets to that third item, with the fact that it's Mountain Rift, it does get incredibly scary because these choke points are going to become a lot more constricted to try and sidestep these electric charged lasers. So that is something to hopefully not look forward to if you're PSG, right? So you do
gotta close it out soon.
Try and find the killer blow sooner rather than later.
CFO are going to mobilize to try and defend this. But they've got Hanabi on the side lane. He's more than a match for Rest at this point, especially once the Narbar is up. And wave clear is still there for CFO, so they can actually stop this for now. Hanabi just trying to keep this jungle clear so they can get their flank on as he throws a few more boomerangs into Rest back. It's going to be the end of that for now. Baron has been outlasted, but they lost a few towers for it.
Yeah, Gory 6-0-2, incredibly strong. If he finds a pick, he can definitely burst anyone out at this point.
Oh, they've got him locked up for just a second. Even though they take Gory out of the fight, I still favor PSG in this one. Although the Gnar was a little bit late on the uptake, and here's the turn from CFO. A second time again, blinking health bars, but Mission they do have themselves a tower in their safety zone. Rest.
The hook
Hanabi, they hook back unified, and it's a big old shutdown. CFO, they're back in the game.
And it comes off the back of the pick on to Gory. Still has the stopwatch available. The chain CC was just way too good from CFO. They managed to just choke him out and finish him off before the stopwatch is able to come through. That's actually a game changer because you see he has that flash available. If he's able to stopwatch, buy more time, flash out, reset the fight. Remember how much damage is on him? He would have been able to mop the rest of it, but because he goes down early, it makes life so difficult for Unified. As again, like, he's able to throw out the ultimate, but look at how many autos he's able to get. He's autoing this turret because of how far forward the rest of his team is, so unable to follow up on the damage. By the time he's actually able to start autoing, the fight's already over. He's got no friends left, and they just easily turn on to him.
Yeah, that was huge. It seemed like both teams wanted to make the play at the exact same moment, but Gemini's ultimate was critical there. And clearly, PSG just weren't ready to make the full play. You had Hanabi around the side as Narbar wasn't fully up yet, so he couldn't commit to the play. When he finally did, it was a big multi-man Gnar, but it was way too late. So now, CFO have an opportunity back into this game. There will be a Mountain Dragon coming up in 40 seconds. Baron just 10 seconds after that. PSG know this. They have to set up for the set play. But CFO, they've got all their tools. They've got a fair bit of their summoner spells left. So do PSG. I think we might be in for a proper 5v5.
Pyra, Mission, he does have the Void Staff.
Yes, he does. Still no stopwatch, but at least there's 6 stacks on the Darksteel. He's just got to position better, man. This is Mission living dangerously, all right? It's what he does.
Yes.
Mission improbable.
And it's going to boil down which mid laner gets picked off. I think that's what the fight is going to boil down to. A huge zap comes
Weaver's
out.
Wall. That Weaver's Wall isn't going to be the engage, though. It's a defensive play. Now they look for a second win. It's CFO. They might be daring
Like that?
PSG to just flip for the
This
dragon.
is a Dragon
I mean,
Soul, so
yeah.
Baron is a better trade out for the side of CFO. I like this move coming in from them. They don't have vision control around the dragon, right? So this is huge. The side of PSG, what do you do?
Already down to half its hit points. They're looking to snap the trap shut. Hanabi on the side doesn't quite have the Narbar just up. This will come down to the smite is taken, but do they have the fight on the opposite side of this one? Hanabi just whiffs it on the Nar ultimate. You can see Shun completely untouchable. Will they be able to find this fight? Hanabi a little bit low, backs away. Mission Gemini taken very low into the back of the pit, but nobody's there. They're gonna keep moving on this one. Mission
can't do
staying
anything.
alive. Rest with a chase down Unified on the run. And they lose Kaiwing, they lose Bury. They don't take a Baron down with the TP back into mid. CFO just going to go from objective to objective.
This is a bit of a premature TP coming in from Mission, but the side of CFO, they will turn their attention over to this Mountain Dragon, and it does look like they just want everything. They're grabbing the red buff on their way out, and Mission, with that teleport, able to secure mid lane wave pressure. That CFO can be a little bit more greedy and secure the dragon afterwards. You see the replay. Claw does a fantastic job of just zoning Hanabi off until the very end, but remember, Shun's on the Zeri, so you can't lock them down. They don't have any backline pressure. Where's the backline pressure? And on the flip side, Unified, he gets caught by Rest. And once more, like the Philios, yes, he can do a lot of damage, but against this composition of CFO, he doesn't have the range to compete against the Azir, against the Zeri.
Yeah, that's the problem. They needed to get in there a little sooner, and you can start to see some of the limitations. Hanabi was kept at arm's length. Shun was able to stay safe. And Hostile Takeover did a little bit of work, bought some time. At the very least, split the team up, and I think that's the critical thing, is that now CFO, they've got the Baron buff on, they've got Soul Point, and Rest is not useless on this Renekton. With that Gargoyles build, he's just going to be a big old stat stick to absorb all of the pressure.
And he has a stopwatch.
He does. It's going to be harder to take him down.
Guess who still doesn't have one?
Well, hey, in his defense, in Mission's defense, he's got 8 stacks on the seal. He's got a needlessly large rod. He's got no room, right? What he has to sell something, Nightstar.
This time he has a large rod. So, you know, he's packing a ton of damage. But if they find the pick onto Mission, that's a big takedown, because even if you do get onto Shun, he has the escape tools, and he also has a stopwatch of his own. So it's very hard to lock down Shun in this instance. So all your attention is onto Mission. So he's basically playing bait, right? Because Shun, level 16. So he's got the maximum amount of zoomies, along with the 3.5 items, means he should be able to clean up these fights if too many cooldowns are burned onto the Zero.
Yeah, right now there's not much to take on the map except jungle, so CFO are doing exactly that, hoping to bait PSG out of their comfort zone. This tower in the top could fall pretty quickly, and Hanabi's not really got the Narbar to try and defend it, but the rest of the team is at his back. The next dragon may very well decide the game, as it is going to be Soul Point for CFO. For PSG, they need to keep this one going, but they got to that dangerous point. Nightstar, you were talking about it like 10 minutes ago. Hey, PSG, they're in control, but they're going to have to start making plays. They did, but they lost out, and all of a sudden, CFO, they got back in the game. They got the tempo advantage. They've got pushing lanes now, but they will have to go home, as there's nothing for them to take here.
They have a massive scaling advantage as well. Though the big difference here for the side of PSG is that they have ways to punish overextensions. Right? Before, they weren't able to force the catch because they were on a Renata, they were on a Trundle. This time around, they have plenty of catch tools. Difference is, they also need a little bit of damage to finish off those picks.
They need Gory to stay alive. It really comes down to these mid laners, right?
Yeah, he still has stopwatch. Hasn't used it yet.
Wouldn't you rather have an 8-stack Dark Seal?
No.
At this point, he'd probably have a Medjai's, actually. But, yeah.
Yes, if it was a 20-stack Medjai's, you better believe I'm taking that 20-stack Medjai's.
Gory doesn't seem like a casual Medjai's enjoyer, though. I think he really needs to make sure he's got that stack before he builds it.
You know, fair enough. Mission, though. He
Mission
seems
does.
like a guy who would upgrade to Medjai's if he was on 4-stack. You know,
What's he waiting for?
he's been sort of playing the ego game, saying, "Hey, I am just too good of a player that you cannot touch me." Unfortunately, it's bit him in the butt 3 times.
It has, but I mean, hey, all things considered, the picks have been fairly impactful on both sides. I mean, that PSG are still really feeling the sting of the one-time Gory got caught. Buying time here, CFO just keeping these waves cleared. It's going to be Dragon and Baron up pretty soon, and I think CFO can try and bait it out both ways, but that Soul is very tantalizing.
Soul, very, very tantalizing. And if CFO are able to get into the river early on, it makes it incredibly difficult for PSG. But CFO perhaps a little
teleport
bit greedy with the...
This is in vision. Rest
good
gonna
luck,
be completely caught, and he slices, gets stunned, tries to dice it out. There's the Dominus on, buying a little time. The team scrambles to get to him. He's forced to flash away, and they use Gemini's Ice Bullet defensively. CFO, that was an extremely optimistic play, and it gets smelled out immediately. PSG ping out Dragon.
They're gonna turn their attention over to the Dragon, but remember, PSG, they may be able to deny Soul, but it doesn't change the fact that the side of CFO, they can just get Baron, right? Because they get a choice. They have a choice in the map.
Already down.
PSG,
Flash and dash. Here we go. Kaiwing. They're going to go in this one. They do manage to get a big burst onto Mission, and he gets a bailout just in time for the Emperor's Divide. Do they have enough to take this one down? The Baron's still alive in this qualifying time. Here comes Shun going huge, and Gemini on the front line buying even more. Here, Koala getting taken out by the Baron on the back. It's going to be Unified going so low, but Gemini, no, he falls. Shun, he gets the kill. Shoved. No damage to follow up. The triple jump for the Zeri finally goes down, but Gori and Navi are still hanging tough in this one. Koala is desperately trying to back. He's forced to flash away. Woo! What a fight.
What a fight. PSG finally managed to find the 5v5. And it comes at the best time yet. Around that Baron buff with Soul Dragon up and available, they are able to find those kills on the Baron, get the extra gold, and now they can also turn their attention and deny Dragon Soul Mission.
Caught again.
Caught out.
No stopwatch. Mission does get a bailout at the very least,
but that's it. That's all his contributions in this fight. And even though Shun and Unified were untouched, the moment Shun takes the straight up 1v1 against Unified, that's exactly the situation he wants for Unified, right? Because it's in those few situations that an Aphelios will beat out on the Zeri. Otherwise, Zeri just slowly whittles everyone down. But now it's PSG turn the attention over to the Baron, having that Dragon taken off the table.
Yeah, already off the board. Weaver's Wall just cut up everything with Gemini here, and he just gets locked up.
Hanabi doesn't have
be secured. He doesn't, but the chase isn't there. CFO. Okay. This time they hesitate a little bit. So PSG off the back of that fight, off that opportunity they were given. Ball is back in their court. They take full advantage of it by cutting the Drake stack down again and getting the Baron for themselves. Ooh, nice start. This game just keeps on swinging. It is 38.5 minutes. We're in the late game now.
So tense. And
I do like that skin on Rest, by the way. I wanted to say that all game, but we finally had a bit of downtime. Nightstar. That's like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Renekton. That looks like a dual disc. Look at that thing.
Oh yeah.
It's time to duel. 1v1 me top lane, bro.
Unfortunately, he hasn't had the opportunities to take the straight up duels against Hanabi.
Not this time.
Yeah, he's had his moments against Unified though. And
that's true. Surprisingly.
Taking stock of the itemization, we have the Zhonya's completed by Gory, so he's still going to be very difficult to catch out. Finally, we do have Mission buying up the stopwatch after he secures himself the wizard hat. And Shun also onto a GA, so he's full build. The big ticket champions are max damage.
Kaiwing able to get away as the dredge line windup was already completed. And Gemini burns his Glacial Prison. That's a difference maker. Unified, though, clipped by the Ultra Shock laser. Yeah, Shun is starting to sting. It may be no 9-kill Draven, but it's still a Zeri with full build.
Yeah, late game Zeri, just so much outrange potential. And also look at Koala. He's built himself a Zhonya's as well. So this is probably the last fight.
Tower goes down. Weaver's Wall does allow PSG to just finish that one off. They're right back to the mid lane now as the minions come in, making the most of their Barons. Still have a minute on it. Hanabi's Narbar must be respected. PSG, they're breaking the base on this one. That's number 2 tower. They haven't got the inhibs, though.
For the side of CFO, you're just looking for a little bit of chip damage. You have the extra range with the Zir, with the Zeri. If you chunk out one of these frontline tanks to 50%, that forces PSG to go ahead back off. It's difficult for them to overforce the issue. But PSG go for the recall, reset the situation. 2 minutes until Mountain Dragon. CFO still have that as a win condition. Because if you look on the side of PSG, again, the Unified would be really the only person that's really able to punch through this mountain shield along with the extra resistances. Even though Talia, very strong, doesn't quite have that late game.
Yeah, rocks on rocks, not quite as much damage as you would hope for. CFO looking for that win condition to bolster their defenses and therefore be able to go in without fear. Stopwatch for Mission may yet be the difference maker. 41.5 minutes on the game clock.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Look at Rest's build.
He's tanky boy.
No, it's not just that. He has GA and he has Gargoyle. If you needed more stasis or survivability, it's harder to get more than that. He's also
That's the best you
looking
can do at this point
to get the Randuins, and with this build, he takes a pretty decent chunk of damage against Talia. But this is a pure, I'm a 1v1 you Unified, and you can't outplay me.
Rest definitely showing he's confident enough even in the late game Renekton. CFO looking to death ball this up. PSG split it out. Next Dragon coming up, 20 seconds. Man, we've had so many Elemental Drakes this game. Can you believe it's a 42-minute game and the Elder hasn't made an appearance yet? The shove onto Gemini, they pull him back, they bait the trap, and that's going to be the jungler gone. Furry.
On me on the backside.
That's going to be that
Mission
ultimate, not quite enough. Maybe they can get enough out this back one. That's going to be Mission. He gets caught. He's taken down. Unified's there. Should in the back line, but he doesn't have any backup. And now he gets popped into his stasis. But they've surrounded him here. Shun trying for the outplays. The opposite wall. Looks to bait this out. Here's Rest and Quella. So many of these stasis effects, but they're not going down just yet. Shun gets outplayed. Gory on the side. That's going to be everyone but Rest out of this, who finally falls with the death timers so hot. PSG going to do this one.
And PSG, they even up the score in the series. It's 1-1. And as we said, pre-game, it comes down to PSG executing better in the 5v5s. And this time around, they weren't far enough behind in the early mid-game that they were able to dictate the game at their own pace. And CFO found their moments, but it wasn't enough.
We got ourselves a series on our hands. PSG, it took them 40-plus minutes to turn the tables, but they certainly did. And CFO now, all things evened up once again. That all-time head-to-head, standing in PSG's favor again. My goodness, what a series we have already had in 2 games. Cannot get 2 games differently than those 2, I think. It was just such a different tempo, such a different pace.
And the Philios pick played a role in the game, but I think most importantly, it was how PSG played around the mid lane to Leah in this game number 2 over the game number 1. They threw in a bunch of attention, had the Nautilus to try and force picks onto Mission. And Mission in this game number 2, abysmal is what I can say, because he just got caught time after time after time, didn't opt to use flash in moments where he should have instead of the glide, and also didn't get a stopwatch until very end, and unfortunately didn't have any impact with it.
No, I think a lot of the fights that went south were just because of Mission getting caught. I mean, he did have some near moments that, despite that, managed to get some plays off. You could see Quella giving him that bailout in the Baron pit. It just didn't do enough. And yeah, it really comfort level a lot higher for PSG. It was still a very hard fought game. They did have some trouble, a few critical plays going awry that got CTBC Flying Oyster back into it. But at the end of the day, it was just better 5v5 and better preparedness that allowed PSG to take it at the end. The execution was there, but this was, I think, a game really worthy of our two likely top teams in the league. Based on what we saw last spring, even though this was number 1 versus number 4 seed, it was oh so close in a number of games, tiebreakers and all that. CFO are going to now be the one are now going to be the ones having to adjust a little bit. I think they were hoping to stomp some lanes up top that kind of got taken out the window. They really need Mission to step up his positioning, and I hope they can teach an old dog new tricks, because that did start to feel like one of those Mission tilt games where he just fully commits to his strategy regardless of what is happening.
He fully embraced the zoom, and he went straight down the middle.
It's a technical term for that, Nightstar. It's called running it down.
Yeah, we'll avoid full committing to that one. But going into the next game for CFO adaptations, right? Do they go onto blue side? Do they prioritize Azir or Aphelios in the next draft? Because it does seem like Aphelios might play a critical role because of how much lane pressure you can exert. This time around, Shun, Koala, yes, they had the better scaling with the Renata Zeri, but Unified looks much more comfortable when he is on Aphelios and being able to actually lane than, you know, everything else when he has a good lane.
I think that's a great adaptation for them if they can do it. First pick blue side, it's CFO's specialty. They are a little bit better on that side of the map, a lot better on that side of the map generally speaking. So for the first time, they will have that selection. Let's keep our eyes on this game though, because very back and forth in these fights. And it seems like Mission just keeps playing so dangerously. It's not just the lack of stopwatch, right? It's like, what are you doing when your team's there? And then he delivers Hanabi to the team.
Into Shun. Not just like the rest of the team. It's into your priority carry. And thankfully, Shun able to still get 1 kill out of this, but it wasn't a great situation. Koala did have some pretty good Renata ultimates because of just sort of the setup with how PSG wanted to just force their way into CFO. It just wasn't enough, because you should have a second carry with a ton of damage besides the Zeri. They just never had it.
I didn't realize how close that last fight was. If Bury had gone down and the reset comes off of the bailout, like, I think that's a different fight. But this, here it was again. It started out looking really good for CFO. They never secured the Baron though, and yeah, like, everybody splits up a little bit, and it's Gory really just delivering so much damage. And even though this fight's basically over, you think you can salvage it. Rest just gets stun locked into the wall, and there it is.
Gory, of course, no doubt gets the MVP. But it was, again, one of those team play moments. The side of PSG just outperformed CFO as a 5-man squad. So many of these fights came down to the straight up 5v5, or I should say 5v4, because of the side of CFO faltering at the start of these fights. And when it's uneven match, it changes the calculus, right? Instead of those 50-50 fights that PSG might not be willing to take, it all of a sudden does turn into a 90-10.
Yeah, and then PSG are pretty confident to hit the go button. You can see they had some peaks and troughs, but they were able to bring it right back around, not letting CFO get that Mountain Soul win condition was a huge thing. Making sure that they could find the picks they needed to set up the fights. And Gory, night and day performance from game 1. It wasn't the Talia that was the problem. It was setting him up for success. Really got to hand it to his jungler and his support for doing exactly that, while the rest of the lanes were holding their own. And of course, Gory wins the MVP. I said it before, I'll say it again. These are our 2 best mid lanes, and Gory definitely showed who's number 1.
In back-to-back games, we have our MVP having 10+ kills. That is
it's almost like that's That's an indicator or something, right? I know KDA doesn't mean everything, but in this series, it certainly means a lot.
It is nuts with how focused the
94
gold is.
94.7% kill participation. Yeah. What did he miss? A solo kill?
That's a tough
I can
one
do that
to
math
say.
fast.
He didn't get the kill onto Koala executing.
That's true. That is true. Nobody got that one. Koala actually got. Yeah, you know, it's curious. I'm not sure, but either way, we're tied up 1-1. This is absolutely delivering as a series. Could be in for a very long one as things go forward.
Strap in.
Oh, I'm so excited. This is going to be so good. So looking ahead, you know, changing things up. Maybe we'll see CFO going over to blue side. What else would you like to see out of the draft?
CFO, they could still stick on to red side. I don't hate their red side looks, right? From the draft perspective, I think they've been really, really good. It's, of course, just if you go on to blue side, they do have to be weary of, hey, maybe we do give up the Azir, and how do we play against Gory's Azir? Or do we just change up our bans completely?
Well, we'll have to see. We are going on break. We'll be back in just a few for Game 3 of the series. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it.